right, hi there, everybody. For those of you who don't know, my name is Juliana, and I'm going to be talking to you today about point four of the core competency, technological knowledge and skill. And in particular, we are going to be talking about information security and practices within libraries. So let's go ahead and get started. I just want to cover with you the exact point of point four of the core competency that I'm going to be going over today, which is technological knowledge and skill, in particular point 4A, which reads as follows. Information, communication, assistive and related technologies as they affect the resources, service delivery, and uses of libraries and other information agencies. So basically what we're going to be talking about today is different information security techniques and education that librarians can provide in order to protect patrons and actually the whole library itself. So I've got 3 points to cover with you about protecting patrons, and then another 3 points to cover with you about protecting the actual physical collections themselves. So let's go ahead and start off with patrons. The first thing we're going to talk about is advocating password strength. Often when new patrons are coming to register to use the library or new digital services, they will be asked to make an account, which will also require them to make a password. It's important to advocate password strength, that passwords should be of a substantial length, have uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, special characters. Also, it's really important to advocate that you never reuse passwords. So you never want to use the same password that you're using for your banking account or your email or even to just log into your computer. All passwords should be unique and separate. The last thing is you never want to physically write down a password. So after they're done registering for an account, if you do see them jot down that password, you don't remind them that's not the best idea. That's not very safe. So next we're going to talk about physically securing devices within the library. There's 2 different situations here we're looking at. The first one is educating patrons on how to actually physically lock a computer within a computer lab. Typically this is done by pressing Windows L, but it'll depend on the image that's actually set up on the lab computers. So work with your tech team, kind of experiment and determine how to lock those machines so a patron's information is kept safe when they're away from the computer, maybe grabbing something from the printer. The other side of this is to help work with patrons that they should keep their personal computers and tablets and computing devices with them at all times. This means if they're getting up to go to the bathroom or if they're going to go and collect resources from somewhere, they really should be bringing those devices, those personal belongings with them. And the last point I'd like to share with you about for patrons, designed for patrons, is really the public kiosk versus general use computers. Really understanding the difference between these 2 computers, how the boot cycles work. Typically on public kiosk computers, caches are not cleared during the reboot cycle, where with general use computers there is a full dump and a clean during the reboot cycle. So where we're going to be seeing this is, for example, in a public kiosk situation where you do have like a catalog system running on it and then also like a web browser. What we end up seeing is that patrons will use the web browser to log into Facebook, their personal email, to collect information on the resources that they're looking for. It's important to inform these patrons that their information is not just going to be logged out when the computer resets. So to log out, to really not be using these accounts on these computers in the first place, and to turn towards the general use lab computers for anything where they do need to log in. So next we're going to go ahead and talk about protecting collections as a librarian and what sort of information security techniques we can be using while protecting these collections. So the first one we're going to talk about is kind of weird. A lot of people don't see information security being related to physical security, but they are actually very related. Information security is not just limited to digital aspects. So in terms of physical security, it's very important as a librarian to make sure that any keys or access cards that you use on a daily basis are secured and only made available to librarians who have that access level. It's also important that passcodes for doors are never shown to patrons. It should never be written down in any way, shape, or form. And it's also important to check for wear on the actual physical keypad. Often, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is worn away, and that ends up being the passcode for the door, so it's pretty easy to get in. Things to consider while looking at physical security of the library. The next point is very important for anybody with company-owned devices or libraries which allow you to have a BYOD, which is a bring your own device, which would be a personal device such as a cell phone or a tablet, which would have company information on it. So what's important here is to understand that those devices which I just mentioned should never be connected to public Wi-Fi. Public Wi-Fi is very insecure, and it's incredibly easy to actually access the devices that are connected to public Wi-Fi and pull any sort of information that you would like. Obviously, company devices should never be connected to this Wi-Fi source. You should avoid connecting using BYOD devices. However, if you have to avoid doing any sort of company communication via text, phone, or by email while connected to public Wi-Fi. Things to consider. And last, I would like to talk about understanding the importance of understanding phishing emails. It is critical to understand the anatomy of a phishing email. By protecting your computer, you're actually protecting the entire network and most of all of the data that is held within the library. So it's important when looking at phishing emails to understand what they typically look like, to understand what suspicious links or suspicious attachments might look like. What you should do when you get emails from senders that you're not expecting email correspondence from, how to follow up with that. If you do have a tech team, it is worth following up and determining how they would like phishing emails reported and what sort of information they would like provided in order to track down kind of the source of those. So that is everything I have for you in regards to point 4A of the ALA core competencies. I just wanted to reinforce that part of understanding the technologies being used in libraries is also understanding how to protect the library and the library collections. So, hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you so much for your time and have a great rest of your day.